Hello, my name is Yevette Matos. This is my teaching presentation. This is the analysis of the myth of the White Conquistador, Chapter 3, Yevette Matos teaching presentation. The background is a depiction of ships that might be used during the conquistadors' era. So this presentation is based on the 7 myths of the Spanish Conquistador book. This book was written by historian Matthew Restall. In his words, here is an intriguing exploration of the ways in which this history of Spaniard conquest has been misread and passed down to become popular knowledge of these events. The book offers a fresh account of the activities of the best-known conquistadors, explorers, including Columbus, Cortez, and Pizarro. In the image, it is a picture of his book. So in this presentation, we're going to explore what he means by myths and go into depth on the third myth. So what is a myth is important. In this book, the author presents myths as historical interpretation. At its most basic level, the book juxtaposes false and accurate depictions of the conquests, but the book is also more than that in presenting historical interpretations of the political agendas of their time. In the author's words, he is aware that I am inexplicably influenced by the concepts and language of my own culture beyond simply contrasting myths and reality by analysis, recognizing that myths can be real in their own progenitors and that supported reality by researching archival sources can also generate its own myths. So pretty much the understanding of that is that this isn't myths in the capacity that is understood as fairy tales or like giants or anything like that. This is myths that are pretty much like what happens after people recount stories multiple times and trying to find the truth somewhere in that myth. An image of Cortez. So, who were the conquistadors? They were Spanish and Portuguese explorers and soldiers, a really diverse group of people as we explore into the Seven Myths book, that they were artisans as well. But they are known as the conquistadors that ventured into the America during the European colonization, seeking wealth, power, and new lands. Notable conquistadors include Hernan Cortez, the image that we saw before, who led the exploration that resulted in the fall of the Aztec Empire in central Mexico, and Francisco Pizarro, who defeated the Incas Empire in Peru in the early 1530s and later established Lima as the capital city of Peru. This is Pizarro. So we're exploring the myth that the conquistadors acted alone. So in chapter 3, it's about like the invisible people that participated in the conquest. So contrary to popular beliefs, the conquistadors did not achieve their conquest alone. They were often aided by slaves whose contributions are rarely acknowledged. Additionally, they formed alliances with various indigenous civilizations who acted as guides or partners in battle. The image is the conquistadors meeting an indigenous tribe or civilization. So we're exploring the Black Conquistadors. Juan Guerrero has been called Mexico's only conquistador. So has Juan Valentin been called the lone Negro conquistador of Chile. Yet evidence for Mexico, Chile, Peru, and Colombia, Venezuela, and elsewhere shows that these men were by no means alone. A number of Africans on earlier expeditions were in the dozens or hundred. There were soon thousands of black men and women in coral colonies such as Peru while the conquest continued. Uh, the the conquest continued. Depictions of black conquistadors being included. This one is um, to be believed Juan Guerrero. So, so Juan Guerrero was a black conquistador born in West Africa around 1480. He was likely sold as a slave to Portuguese trader and converted to Christianity in Lisbon, later moving to Celebes. In the early 1500s, he crossed the Atlantic to the Caribbean, probably as a servant or slave. Um, Over the next several decades, he participated in key expeditions, including conquest of Puerto Rico, Cuba, and later Mexico, where he joined Hernan Cortez's campaign. Guerrero played a significant role in the conquest of Central America, becoming one of the founding residents of Mexico City. Notably, he is credited with planting the first wheat crop in New Spain. He continued to take part in exploration conquest expedition through his life, including those of Michoacan and Zacatual and Baja California. He eventually gained his freedom and married and had children, living out his final years in Mexico City, where he died. In addition, another black conquistador was Val- Valiente, a black conquistador born in West Africa around 1505, likely sold into slavery by a Portuguese trader. He ended up in Mexico, where he was baptized and became property of a Spaniard named Alonso Valiente. In 1533, he convinced his owners to allow him to seek opportunities as a conquistador. For 4 years, with the promise of returning his earnings, Valiente joined Pedro de Alvaro's expedition to Peru, later switching to Diego Almagro's company and fighting in Chile. By 1540, Valiente had risen the ranks of captain and horseman, receiving land and uh, Ecormisia near Spain. Despite living as a free man, he remained legally as a slave and attempted to purchase his own freedom, though he was ultimately killed in 1533. Um, what was interesting about Juan was that his owner attempted to get him back a couple of times. With the last attempt, they realized that he had been killed. This is a depiction of uh, what Cortez would have seen, or like the first conquistadors would have seen as they entered like Mexico City. They described it as like something that they'd never seen before. Um, so, in addition to black conquistadors, the or slaves, the conquistadors had help from indigenous populations. The indigenous participation in the conquest. In addition, there were neighborhood civilizations that would help in conquering other civilizations. The book stating that there is no hint of racial solidarity between the Nahuas and Mayas in this account, nor should there be any expected, and nor was there a sense of Maya ethnic solidarity in the 16th century. In time, Maya from Calcan region and other parts of Yucatan would accompany the Spaniards into unconquered regions of the peninsula as porters, warriors, auxiliary, and auxiliaries of various other kind. Company of archers were under permanent commission of Maya towns of Texcal and Oxticlab, regularly called upon to man or assassinate in raids of unconquered regions of colony of Yucatan. Um, in this depiction, you can see that the indigenous people are fighting alongside of the Maya or of the Spaniard people. So it wasn't like it was like all the indigenous people against the conquistadors. Like in some of the minds of like the indigenous people, they understood them the conquistadors as like fighting their enemy. So like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But they didn't realize that like eventually they would colonize them as well. So a primary account of this that supports this is in Leon Portia's The Broken Spear. Evidence to support the claim that conquistadors had help from other indigenous communities is in the book The Broken Spears, that gives firsthand accounts of the downfall of the Aztec Empire at the hand of the conquistadors. In the text, it states that a man from Simopola, which is another indigenous community that like wasn't part of the Aztecs, who was known as the Tloxicalchil, chief of House of Arios, was the first official to welcome them being the conquistadors, as they entered the land of the city. This man spoke Nahuatl. He showed them the best routes and the shortest ways. He guided them and advised them, traveling at the head of the party. These people also, while this indigenous community also later on in the book supported the conquistadors fighting against like the Aztecs, so they were alongside them in battle as well. So in conclusion, the myth of the white conquistador is one that has truth to it. While the majority of the conquistadors were of European descent, they had assistance from slaves that were seldom named. The two ones that are recognized are Juan Guerrero, which was the most popular one. He's the one that's most depicted in like Black conquistador art, and Juan Valentin, and he's less known. They also had help from indigenous people in their conquests. Yeah.